So we're super excited to share with you our insights and our learning, which was large, right? Rebuilding after, and I say after loosely, the pandemic. That's, we're still dealing with things from that, but I was really excited to put together a group of educators. I think hearing from people that were on the front lines and how they have tweaked their practice, and how competency-based really played such a significant role in not only how we survived and were able to continue to connect and encourage our students and increase engagement, but also how we monitored that and how it shaped and transformed us coming back. We definitely held tight to our competency-based foundation we had in place. At the time that happened, we were already about 12 years into implementation of competency-based. But really, I think it took us to a whole new level and created some consistencies that we couldn't even have anticipated when we went into this. So really excited for you guys to hear from 4 of our educators that are veteran staff, and they can talk to you about how this really had an impact on their instruction and where do we go from here. So to tell you a little bit about us, we were Metropolitan Arts Academy and just did our brand new renewal of our innovation plan. So when we went into this, we were in year 1 of implementation of opening a visual and performing arts school. And so had just started establishing a culture and a climate in our school community. Really, we're just laying the foundation for what does it mean to be an innovation art school. And then right upon opening and found ourselves in this scenario. And as you know, the arts took such a large hit during the pandemic. It was difficult for obviously people to even find employments in the arts because performances, went away. And so to really start to increase kids' understanding of what it is an art school while not being able to have performances or give them that foundation, we found ourselves in quite a pickle. Right now, we're about 354 students at an 87% free and reduced lunch. We have noticed our English language learners have gone down a little bit. Used to be about 4% higher, but we're at about 43% now. And what's unique about us is that we have full-time dance, drama, visual art, vocal music, and instrumental music. And so 5 full-time specials, which is pretty unique nowadays, especially when you see the arts being cut. But we really want to talk through our lens of how competency-based saved us and how we have had to reimagine everything and rebuild from there. So who we have on our team today, I'm the principal of Metropolitan Arts Academy. And we have Dylan Shalofsky, and she played a couple different levels, but right now she's level 5-6. Samantha Nelson, she's a level 2 teacher, and all of the teachers you see here have taught multiple levels, which is nice to have that expertise in a competency-based system to really look at the progression of our system and how it works. Jennifer DiLorenzo, she's a level 3-4 teacher, and then Amanda Fuller, she's currently a level 1.
Awesome. So I think March 13th, 2020 will be forever a day that will be etched in every educator and probably parents' mind. It was the day when we heard the news that, first we would be going remote for 2 weeks, which then became a month, which then became the rest of the school year. And, because of CBE, our school in our district was able to transition pretty successfully to remote learning, the Monday following. But with that came a lot of, struggles, I think, for both teachers and students. We immediately lost the connections with our classes. We were trying to track student learning, student attendance. We were trying to come up with these ways to keep students engaged and involved, in a way that we hadn't ever thought of before. But then the 2020, 2021 school year, comes around, and, it looked different than school has ever looked before. And so we have a video to show you. I believe, Claudette, you're going to kind of tell us a little bit of the background behind this video.
So I'm sure those of you that were leaders in schools at the time were a little overwhelmed. I found myself quite overwhelmed with having to see our teachers become, first responders and really have to evolve into what they never anticipated being. And so it was really important for us to capture that time, especially since it was our first year opening, and look at have something to look back at that would remind us of how far we've come and how much we've changed and evolved.
There are moments that the words don't reach. There is suffering too terrible to name. You hold your child as tight as you can and push away the unimaginable. The moments when you're in so deep, it feels easier to just swim down. And so they move uptown and learn to live with the unimaginable. If you see him in the street, walking by himself, talking to himself, have pity. He is working through the unimaginable. His hair has gone gray, he passes every day. They say he walks the length of the city. Can you imagine? Look at where we are. Look at where we started. I know I don't deserve you, but hear me out, that would be enough. If I could spare his life, if I could trade his life for mine, he'd be standing here right now, and you would smile, and that would be enough. I don't pretend to know the challenges we're facing. I know there's no replacing what we've lost, and you need time, but I'm not afraid. I know who I married. Just let me stay here by your side. That would be enough. If you see him in the street, walking by your side, talking by your side, have pity. He is trying to do the unimaginable. See them walking in the park long after dark, taking in the sights of the city. They are trying to do the unimaginable. There are moments that the words don't reach. There's a grace too powerful to name. We push away what we can never understand. We push away the unimaginable. They are standing in the garden, her by his side. She takes his hand. It's quiet uptown, forgiveness. Can you imagine forgiveness? Can you imagine? If you see him in the street, walking by her side, talking by her side, have pity. They are going through the unimaginable.
And so that song kind of became a driving force behind what we did. We have these incredible, incredible kids in front of us whose lives were changed in ways that I think we still don't even necessarily know or understand. But we knew that we had to return to the foundations of competency-based education to really, truly provide, our babies what they deserve. And so, we hope this morning that we're able to kind of tell you the story, using the different tools that we've utilized to kind of rebuild and reimagine what school is like after we've been so impacted by the pandemic. So here's how we started to rebuild and rewrite our legacy.
Can I pause just a second there, Jill? I just wanted to add, you'll have seen in the video, it started when we came back that following year. But what was unique about our schools, we were one of 2 schools in the district to do simultaneous learning, remote and in person. And so it was a large priority for us to reopen. And so our team made the decision to sustain enrollment and keep our kids, since we were just starting out, that they would prioritize teaching at the same time. So they had, probably 15 to 20 on at home and 10 in each classroom, and had to go through the day with a very unique schedule.
There we go. I apologize. I'm going to do my best so you guys can understand me, but I'm fighting a cold. When we came back being so isolated, and then as Claudette just mentioned, we had children at home and children in front of us, and how we can maintain that equity piece and deliver what we needed to both of them. We knew we had to go back and to our restorative justice and our personal connection with kids. So one of our top priorities was to bring a social emotional learning component that would be school-wide. And we brought in Rethink Education. Our admin and our psych department created a scope and sequence that was developmentally appropriate for each of our levels. And each week we focused on a different skill, whether that be a coping skill, learning just to get along with kids again and people. And this, I stress, was also wonderful for teachers too, because we too were in that isolation. These were wonderfully engaging. The students loved them, as well as the strategies could be utilized and revisited throughout the school year. So these are things that we bring back, talk about, hang up in the classroom, and became a vital importance to our kids learning to be back with each other again.
One thing that we have done to build our community is we have a setup with houses or academies where older level students mentor some of our younger level students.
Sam.
Sorry, my sound is not working well. It was working and now it's not. All staff is utilized during this time, and every staff member is part of a house. We use the CREATE acronym, so house courage, house responsibility, empathy, achievement, trust, and excellence. And so we meet at least once a month for a specific lesson or community building activity. We may focus on growth mindset 1 month or perseverance the next. All the staff is assigned with a house, so together staff members plan the lesson, which also builds that community within the staff and the staff connections. It's just an amazing experience to get to see the joy and the excitement of all the students. The older levels are thrilled to come down and support with the younger levels when they see each other in the hall. They get so excited to see their house buddies. It also gives, since we're a PK through 8 school, it gives our teachers a chance to see students that they've had in the past and see how they are thriving throughout the building as they grow.
So to talk about how this evolved a little bit and to summarize what Sam said, in case people couldn't hear, we really focused on implementing some mentoring opportunities for kids. So we put them into a house structure where we had older kids mentoring, doing a lot of peer mentoring, and then teachers could work together to design a project Initially, it was just for that social rebuild and really to just get them connected to other kids. We had to wait until we were out of the cohort structure to actually get them physically together. But what was interesting this year is we've taken this concept and now we have them focusing on one of our 3 school goals. And so they get together and actually work towards designing something. So, one of our goals is lively pace. And so then that'll be a focus. Cognitively complex tasks. And so we have them talk about what does that mean? And so you're getting different developmental levels connecting now a little bit more on what is competency based, what does it mean to have student choice and voice. And then we reserve Mondays as our student agency day. And so at some point in that, we can build in a morning meeting that's a house meeting and they can talk over whatever that specific thing is. So it's been really good about connecting them because even when we came back, we still had that isolation of the cohort. So this really helped to break that down.
Something else that we've done to really emphasize the importance of building community, within our school is by offering learning experiences, that vary, which we'll kind of touch on throughout our presentation. But a big push in our building wide is offering a robust after school programming and bringing back, especially as an art school, live performances, something that we weren't able to do. When we first were bringing back live performances, again, we were still operating within kind of that cohort model. And so even with that, the audience members were just the immediate family of students. We had them social distanced in our auditorium, and this year we've been able to build back, to a little bit more of that, the community oriented performances. And then we've been offering, as you can see, like so many different clubs that all students are able to access after school. Everything from athletics to creative writing to piano lessons to anime to space. Last year we came back and were able to do 2 musicals, one with our intermediate and middle school students. And then we were also able to do a primary musical with our students, in level 0 through 2. And the clip that I'm about to show you, is kind of just the perfect representation of what these experiences meant to our kids. And so we hope you enjoy this very short but darling clip from our primary musical. And so, we started building back our community, but then we had to really start taking a look at the academics and the data. And so Amanda is going to talk to us about that.
So we have a learning management system called Empower. And Empower is where staff is able to create an activity and score what the student turns in. And pre-COVID, that's exactly what staff did. They would create an individual activity and then students would do the activity and they would score it based off what they saw in the classroom. And our home pages would have tons of different just individual activities. And then we started getting a little bit of training on creating a playlist, which is what you kind of see on the screen right now. And then all of a sudden when the pandemic hit, we had to figure out a way to give our students work and to keep them accountable throughout the year, following into the next school year. And so what we did was we started creating these playlists, and these playlists actually work based off our curriculum. It gives us a way of putting our curriculum in order and able to give our students work, and they can actually work through all of these activities at their own pace. In our system, we're able to lock our activities. or we can unlock our activities. If we keep them locked, then it keeps us going from one activity at a time. If we unlock our activities, it gives students the ability to move through that level on their own, which gives them the power to basically move to the level at their own pace. So we use our learning management system to track progress throughout the year. Our goal is for students to make at least a year and a half worth of growth. Within our system, our classes are created within a band. So classes are considered multi-level. Every class has a specific goal where students need to make for the full year for math and for literacy. Our learning management system has a way for us to track the progress, which is what you can kind of see on the screen here. Staff, students, and teachers and parents can look at these goals to see if they've made enough growth throughout the school year. So if they see red is indicating either a student is not completing enough work throughout the school year. Maybe they've been absent or they're not turning in work, or maybe the staff member is not putting in enough data. If they're seeing blue, that student is either getting all of the scores that they are needing to get through the level at the score 3.0, which is mastery or higher, or they're doing a lot of work within that level to stay on top of it, as well as green. Green is indicating that the student is where they are expected to be at. So green and blue is definitely what we would like to see. Red is indicating that that student is starting to fall behind. When parents and students can go into this gives them the opportunity to ask questions of what can I do to improve? What can I do to get better? So that way I can move through my goal. So that way I can start making more growth. Now that we have started to see that students are making growth throughout their school year, we actually have created a demo for teachers to use where teachers can go in and start putting in data to see where would the student end at by the end of the year. If I gave my students all passing score, is it still going to show that they made a year and a half worth of growth? If I'm putting in scores that are not at mastery, does the student still make enough growth? Or what happens if these students start making above my mastery at a 4.0 to determine if they're going to make their year and a half of growth as well? Claudette, did you want to talk about the master schedule?
Sure. So over on the left, you'll see all of our groupings, our core groupings. In our system, one thing that we found was a top priority for us this year is because we had kids that were not moving at adequate pace. The pandemic definitely slowed that down. Coming back, we had quite a few kiddos that would be typical sixth graders, but were performing at a level 5. And so we needed to really break down the middle school stigma because we are a PK8. And so in order to break that down, we just put them into teams rather than saying middle school, intermediate, primary, to really just kind of honor more of the fluidity that takes place in competency-based. And so you'll actually see kind of how the bands work out. And we worked backwards in looking at what is the EOY goal that we want. And then that's how we place them. And we really looked at a 2x2 strand. So not having kids that are more than 2 years in age apart and not having more than 2 levels in each classroom for each content, to really make sure that teachers were not feeling overwhelmed with the amount of levels they were taking on, and to make sure that developmentally we didn't have like a 6th grader with a 3rd grader. And so really looking at how you do that from planning at the end of the year. And so that's how our entire schedule was structured.
So not only do we track our progress within our learning management system, we're also tracking progress in a visual data wall or through data binders. All of our students have data binders in our school, and they're able to track all of their individual assessments and create goals. Teachers meet with students one-on-one to help students track their data and create and adjust their goals throughout the entire school year. And if they have a visual data wall, students are able to actually move their name. And for example, this one's actually a mountain. Other students use clips so that the way they can show where they're at within their level. We also have a tracking process where teachers are also held accountable. And so this is called a teacher activity report, and this comes from our learning management system. And this is where our principal sends this to us, usually weekly. So we have actually a a weekly update. So every Wednesday, our data has to be turned in through Empower, and this will show how many evidences we've turned in, and it will also help keep track for teachers to support one another when this comes out, to see, are you putting in enough data? Are your students moving through the level? So it allows us to be transparent with one another, and it allows us to be reflective to make sure that our students are moving at any time. And that's the best part about being competency-based, is students can move at any time throughout the school year. It does not have to be at the end. Another thing that we also used quite a bit was in our PLCs during COVID, was we were able to create goals, and we were able to see, are our staff members making enough evidences? Is there enough engagement, as well as our students? So when our students were at home, we couldn't really determine whether or not they were working unless they were turning in work. But there was also another report that we could pull, and it would show how many logins they've done, how many things they've turned in. And so we created goals based off of what students were actually engaging in, as well as staff members.
Okay. We developed a, I don't know how, I guess we structured our intervention around a thing called All Heads Together. So we pulled every able-bodied person into the instruction that was needed for our kids, knowing that they were missing things that we could not completely address within the classroom time. So we developed this All Heads under the model based on Marzano's high reliability school certification. And there's phases to that. The first phase is based on culture and climate, checking everything that is assessing student behaviors. Are they getting what they need at that SEL level, as we've said and showed in slides before? That's where we started. Phase 2, we went to instruction and rigor and all of the components that seeing that the kids are getting everything that they needed in that part of school. And then last, the outcomes. This was a continuous observation cycle between admin and teachers. We went through this diligently each week, getting feedback and tweaking the process continuously. This started mid-December last year, and we did it half a year last year, and then we started this year. We've grown and changed this model many times, but it is a centers-based where kids are rotating through skills that they need with 2 adults in the room, the teacher and someone, and this could be from our intervention team, this could be from our specials team. All 5 of our specialists come in and help the teachers with this program. It's something that we've been able to change on the fly given data from the students. So whether that's through an assessment that we have given them or through classroom observation, we can at a moment's notice see a hole and switch a center to address that particular skill. This is done at 8:15 to 9 o'clock every single morning, except for our short days on Mondays. And we've seen great movement from the kids in this program.
I was having some technical difficulties, so hopefully you guys can hear me through here. Sorry about that. For our student voice and choice, it is huge, a big push for us. We start at the very beginning of the year. Many classes do beginning of the year surveys to start with families, to start to know students, their background, their cultures, so that our lessons can be planned around that as well. We have connection circles and restorative justice circles to better understand one another, and for students to be able to make connections with each other, find out what interests them and build off of those. Where a one-to-one district. And so we can base our assessments, our quizzes, we can use different things like Kahoot, Nearpod. We can go through our learning management system of Empower, and we can have quizzes through there as well. Our classrooms use mini Kagan strategies, so that can allow for students group work and partner work, which gets an overall boost in engagement at all levels. Using that Empower platform as well, students can create their own passion projects where they know what Empower levels they're at, what targets they still need to hit, and along with their peers and their teachers, they can create their own projects to mark off some of those targets. We use lots of choice boards during that center work and rotations as well. So students are being able to work on things that they're excited about and eager to understand.
And working at an art school is incredibly special. We have half an hour daily where classroom teachers co-teach with our art specialists, and out of that we've been able to produce and learn through some incredible project-based learning experiences. We've found that this has been a way to build community, with other teachers in our building, community between students, but it's also allowed our students a creative outlet where so many of them thrive. You'll see everything from, our art teacher last year did a phenomenal project where, all of the projects that she did within her classroom and other classrooms was connected to a country and a culture from around the world. We have students who are learning about, life cycles of insects through art, the regions of the United States through music. And it's a way that we have, sparked the love of learning within our students, and honestly sparked the love of teaching again amongst teachers. And another tenet of CBE that we've really tried to, as a staff, work towards and grow in is anytime, anywhere learning. And last year, I feel like we really took that on. We were the lucky recipients of a grant that allowed all the students in our building to go out into, especially the Denver metro area, to experience arts within the community. Our students attended over 44 arts experiences outside our school. They went and saw professional ballets and operas. They saw, they visited the Denver Museum of Art. We, went to shows at the Arvada Center and, the Denver Symphony Orchestra. And then to kind of top it all off, we made one of the dreams that, kind of began when we were writing this innovation plan for this school. And we got to take our 8th graders to New York City last spring in March. And so talk about, a year prior, people were quarantining at home, I guess 2 years prior, especially in New York City. It was kind of, at the beginning of the pandemic, the epicenter of everything that was happening. And so then 2 years later, to be able to bring these 8th graders to New York, they got to obviously go to the Met. It was really fun to be the Met at the Met. But they got to go see Aladdin on Broadway. They got to go to the Modern Museum of Art. They got to go on a cruise around the Statue of Liberty, and bringing these life experiences back to our students. You could see the light in their eyes, which then just made, going to work each day so much more special. And, again, we've started to reimagine what school looks like, while also kind of, in a way, healing from the experiences of the pandemic. And so that kind of brings us to, time to to ask any questions or share any experiences that you may have.
And you can feel free to even put those in the chat. Is there anyone that had some things they'd like to add here, but things that worked for you? Those of you that have a little bit more experience with competency-based rebuilding, and how has education changed for you? Or what are some things that you're doing a little bit differently that you could share with the group?
I'm happy to jump in. I can say that we are doing some work with Lindsay Unified, and I think everywhere what we've seen is this more demand of just not academics only as a focus, and a child needed to be seen as a child and heard as a child in ways that they potentially haven't as they were at home, or they missed out on the opportunities to accentuate in the ways that you also beautifully do. And so whatever that is, whatever that consistency is, to get them back into place, both between the educators and the kids, but also between the kids and the kids, the pure collaborative sense, and the types of like structures and routines that can be put in place, and honestly having to go back and reteach those, like all of these things that feel like they shouldn't have to happen anymore because it's never happened before, this gap in time. I would say that we're finding not just the social emotional learning opportunities that kids need to connect with, but also just the routines and structures and relationship building amongst kids and other adults.
We have a question in the chat. What does it look like when the learners are learning math, reading, etc.? And how is this built into their day? And what does the structure of those classes look like?
Dylan, are you able to pull up maybe our master schedule?
Sure. I'll stop sharing and I'll see if I can find it.
So we build those in to the day outside of humanities, and we have we have a win time, a what I need time, and then we have the all heads in the morning. And so there's it's a double dip of intervention. And then we have the humanities slot, which is about 25 to 30 minutes, depending on the team. And then the other classes, one thing we made a priority with our master schedule this year, because we're trying to move kids at a more accelerated pace, because there is this kind of larger gap now, is to ensure that we offer some of those classes overlapping between teams. And so that's our Monday schedule, which is a shortened day. So we get out early at 1:40 on those days. And then Tuesday through Friday, you can go up a little bit, Dylan. So over here, you have like those goals, that section that you saw on the left built in, but then to the right, you'll see the way that the team schedules break down. And we tabulated on the right, you can see how long their literacy and math minutes are, but kind of where they fall over each other. And so if you have a kiddo during this win time in team A that would benefit from a little higher structure, they can actually roll up into a literacy class at the higher team. And so that's built in, some movement there. And then the same thing, there's some common math times, etc. And so that's basically how it looks for the day. That bottom team C schedule would be your traditional middle school. So they have 2 electives built in to their day, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. And then that all heads time we actually labeled as advisory, but that is our intervention time. So that's also helped us really prioritize tardies with parents, because we found, obviously we have some major chronic absences now because kids got pretty comfortable at home and parents got pretty comfortable with, a relaxed kind of start. So we had to really prioritize, like, this is when school starts. So right at 8:15 while they're eating, they roll right into their all heads intervention. So we're able to say to our parents, hey, if you're bringing them late, they're missing core instruction right from the get-go. There's not a slow start. I mean, we open the doors and they come in freely right at 8:15. And
we have another question that kind of goes along with that. what does kind of this transition into high school look like when they leave our school? Like, what alignment is there between our school and the high school?
So one thing that's beautiful is we're a pretty small district. And so when we implemented systemically. And so we really looked at, when we built out our curriculum, our proficiency scales, looking at that alignment. And we're on, I think, revision, I don't know, Fuller 3 or 4 of those. Fuller's been there since the get-go with us. And so we obviously, all of our proficiency scales are written by teachers. And so that makes it unique. Because then they can sit down and have the conversations about that vertical alignment to high school, and making sure that we're connecting. But what we did beyond that is we have pipelines in our district. And so our school is a direct feeder into the high school for the visual and performing arts. However, we also wanted to make sure that those were still, operating in robust programs in all schools. So we didn't like pull the arts out of other schools. We kept the arts, and then we're just kind of like the next level. And so all of our schools feed into one high school, one main high school, and then an alternative school. But these pipelines, we have like a biomed pipeline, and all of these different pipelines really feed each other. And so our district is big on having choice schools as an option, but still keeping them public schools. So we don't have any like charter schools. They're all public schools, but we have 4 innovation schools. And so we have ones that's, let's say we have STEM, we have the Marzano Academy, we have an international school, and then our art school. And so we're continuously looking at how we can directly align to the high school. And the most interesting part of it is getting innovative at the middle school level has really had to push the high school to step up their programming to be prepared for our kids, because we're sending kids now that, are studying dance, and dance needs to be available. And so that's one thing we had to really look at, is making sure that those programs were available and they wouldn't just fall off or seek that programming somewhere else, because our entire district is competency based. So our learners that have been with us now, we just graduated our first class that have been with us since kinders. And so they really see that alignment. So if you take those kiddos out of what they've known as a competency-based systemic way of learning, and that's all they've known, and throw them into another district, we found that they really, really struggle with that, because they know how to advocate for themselves, and there's, really strong student agency. And so really pushing and keeping those key tenets aligned. And then the other thing is we have multiple meetings a month with administration that's at all levels. So because we're small enough, we're able to constantly have conversations to make sure that that alignment piece is there. And our next big step with that is outreach from the high school, coming down and really selling their programs in our PK8s and in our middle schools. I think for us, we really just wanted to stress, especially for those people that are still considering if this is the right way to go. Equity really played a big handle in this, already having established competency-based systems. And we felt like they were well in place, but this really tested that and made us go back to it in a whole nother way. I mean, just with kids accessing the learning management system and being able to track their progress. We did that in class, but it was with such a hand-holding procedure, and we really guided them through it, where when they had to do that on their own at home, it was really about measuring engagement and their ability to thrive on their own. And part of our mission is to have, equitable access to the arts. And so we kept going back to that tenet of like equitable access to the arts. How do we use our competency-based system to ensure that that still is a top priority as well? Getting creative with, getting creative with how we can bring in field trips and all of those things before we were actually able to get them out and about. What can we bring in virtually to sustain, the mission of our school? Thank you for coming to our session, and please fill out the survey.